Hi, my name is Gabby and today we have the opportunity of an interview with TOBY SKARIA, who is a certified public accountant, and he is here to tell about his story and what he has done. There's a lot to talk about TOBY, but I think it's better we hear it from him. But a short introduction about TOBY. TOBY is a partner with Leap Consultants right now. He started his journey doing a CPA program back in Dubai, and today he is here to share his story and how he was able to complete his CPA program in just a matter of 11 months. Welcome TOBY to our session today.
Hi Gabby, thank you for the opportunity and bringing me to Logic. It's been I think a couple of years since I've recollected my journey with CPA, but of course after my schooling I did my graduation from Scottish University with accountancy and finance. Post that there was a fair amount of understanding how the market worked and how the financial the sector worked in terms of professionals. And obviously during then there was a lot of courses that were coming up with various accounting certifications coming from various parts of the world, and especially from India and the Middle East and UK and specifically the US. But what attracted me to CPA as a qualification, as a certification, was because of how wealthy the market in US is and how deep the market is, because the US New York market is considered as one of the world's largest market, 20 times even higher than the London Stock Exchange. And looking at the prospects of how CPAs are going to be in the future, I felt that all the top 500 companies or any company that's registered in the US would require a certified public accountant's service, would require his certification on financial statements and audit or risk or internal controls and so on. So for me personally, I thought that was going to be a better option than all the other certifications, because taking the most wanted qualification added a lot more credentials to your educational background, and that's how I ended up with CPA, and I shortlisted CPA out of all the other accounting degrees.
Considering CPA as a program, even it's one program I feel even chartered accountants dread or fear to do. So as a graduate, when you thought of doing a CPA program, what went to your mind, or how could you take the bold step to leap into CPA, and any particular strategy that you followed?
Well, yeah, yes, it was a bold step I felt at that time, but CPA as an exam is not considered as an exam that you can clear by hearting some concepts or by going through some books alone, because CPA targets your conceptual clarity, how well you know what you know, and that is what CPA exam as a whole tests, and that is what I got from the entire process. CPA as a program is divided into only 4 papers, and one of the primary reasons is because for example in the Indian CA you automatically do, after your inter you automatically cover the BCom topics and you cover the basics there, but for CPA you anyway need to be a graduate to do a program, and because of that you automatically cover the basics of such. And by the time you come to entering into your CPA studies, you have already covered the core basics, you have already covered a little more in depth, and CPA tries to test your conceptual clarity on that with a bit more wider syllabus. As a program, it is divided into 4 subjects, and which comes under finance, audit, and then business environments, and then specifically regulation as well, which is taxation. And all these 4 papers center around a concept called, again, conceptual clarity, that you need to know what you know very, very, very well. So the focus of any CPA aspirant is to study that concept, to have that conceptual clarity for all the 4 subjects, for all the 4 core points, and the strategy was such that whatever subject that you're picking up, so in CPA exam you can choose the timeline for your subjects according to your preference. So you can either do taxation first or auditing first, or you can do finance first, or whatever suits you the best. My personal strategy was to go with the basics. I did my finance, I did my audit, and then my business environment, and then later on I moved to my regulation as well. But if you look at the time, if you look at picking those things, it's based on respective preferences, and anybody can do that.
See, Toby, I understand there are 4 papers and you can pick and choose whichever paper you want first, okay? And you have gone for finance as the first option, you ended up with regulation. But considering that from the first paper that you write to your 4th paper, you need to complete your CPA in 18 months.
Yeah.
Considering that, what do you think is the duration that we need to set aside after your graduation for such a program as CPA?
Yeah. So, yeah, the question, yes, CPA has a necessity where it comes that when you study and clear the exam of the first 4 of the lot, you have to clear all the other papers, all the other 3 papers within the next 18 months. Or what happens is, after the crossing of 18 months, your first paper lapses out of time and you have to again redo the exam. So, 18 months, but I feel 18 months is a good timeline for anybody to clear the exam, provided they put in the needed effort respective to that person. So, for me, I did it because I try to identify my strength and my weakness and schedule the exams accordingly. And because of that, I was not able to have any lags in between, and because I cleared all the papers in the first attempt, my timeline was only required under 11 months. But ideally, if you have to plan, I would say probably roughly around 12 to 14 months would be ideal, provided that you put in a considerable amount before you schedule your first exam. You clear, you go through at least 2 or 3 subjects, at least minimum of 2 subjects that you go through, you brush through, and then once you schedule your dates, then you completely go into that particular subjects or a group of subjects together and you complete it, so that there is a sense of urgency and there is no lag. And because of that, CPA, because of the timeline, it does enable a lot of people to cover it in the stipulated time and does not allow you to drag beyond a point of time. So, it does give you a sense of, for example, it does give you a sense of clarity than the other exams that you would want to do in 3 years or 2.5 years.
So, Toby, a commerce student, a BCom student aspiring to do a CPA program, he knows financial accounting, cost accounting, he knows a bit of auditing, but probably more theoretical and some level of numerical exposure has come during his BCom days. For such a student, what are the new subjects and what are the old similar subjects that is followed in the CPA program? So, you can explain the 4 subjects a little more in detail, what is being covered. I think it will be useful for our students.
See, accounting principles are the same everywhere. Debit what comes in, credit what goes out, and for the asset account, I hope everyone knows what has to be done. So, that is going to be the same whether you do any program or whether you go into any company or any firm, and only you have either a cash accounting basis or you have an accrual accounting basis. So, in essence, CPA covers the same principles. It goes along the same lines of whatever you have to do in an accounting field, in a finance profession. So, whatever subjects that you see, the 3 subjects, for example, finance and reporting, the business environment concepts and auditing, all 3 are uniformly can be applied across the globe. So, in finance, in the module of finance, you basically deal with different kinds of accounting matters that come into a company, for example, leases and capital account and all those kind of depreciation and how you do that and all those things on a higher length. So, this is something that the students or anybody from a graduate from a finance background would understand. So, this is not, these concepts are not new, but in CPA program, along with these concepts, CPA tries to build higher and in-depth understanding of how these things work. And when it comes to auditing, it's again the same, but auditing again goes through the same concepts. You go through the same kind of understanding about internal controls and how you audit and how you prepare an audit and an engagement plan and so on. But again, CPA develops on a higher platform. And when it comes to business environment concepts, it's something that probably people have already covered in management accounting, in BCom, or for example, in a finance background. How do you cost? What is your variance analysis? What are the different kinds of business risks other than the inherent risks that you cover in audit? Something that you cover in BEC. So, these are all things that which students are generally aware of, but CPA develops your in-depth understanding and analysis of whatever you have to do in the future. The only thing that probably people are going to be a little wonderstruck is with the tax program, with the tax module. So, the regulation The tax principle, although it's the same, that every government needs money to function, so that also is the same basic understanding and regulation. However, the US tax rules differ, and CPA does not test you on how well you remember your rules, but CPA tests you on how well you know the concepts about tax which they are trying to teach you, on who do you tax and how do you tax, what are the basic exemptions that a person gets. If anybody has gone through the Indian tax system and seen it, it's almost the similar concept applied there in different fashions and in different rules. So these are not new concepts, these are just more in-depth in understanding specifically to US environment and accounting frameworks.
I understand CPA as a program comes under a corporate finance professional program, and it's the world's #1 accounting professional program coming from a US body called AICPA. But how is this compared to our traditional chartered accountancy program and an ACCA program, or probably different from a CPA program in Australia? How is CPA quite different from others, and what stands out for CPA USA?
And now coming to the third difference I would particularly highlight in this interview is the accounting standards, because the Indian CA covers more or less the Indian auditing and accounting standards, the INDAS and so on. ACCA covers IFRS, ACA also covers IFRS, but CPA as a qualification, it covers specifically US GAAP and US GAAP, but it also highlights the difference wherever US GAAP holds in respect to IFRS. So wherever the difference is between the US GAAP and the IFRS, you will have to cover it in your CPA modules, but more or less you're studying it in respect to US GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. And what is the difference between all these three standards? As I mentioned earlier, the accounting principles never change in terms of debit and credit, but US GAAP is more conservative in certain matters. Like there is no much leeway in certain matters, and in most of the scenarios in the accounting and financial world, whatever sector you take, whether it be construction, whether it be a service industry, whether it be an online industry, US GAAP outlines more further rules on how you account and how you depreciate and how you capitalize and so on. So there is a more specific rule based order that goes into US GAAP, and these are the three fundamental differences that you can find. There are definitely other differences which we can talk about later, but these are the fundamental differences that you can find in a CPA exam and in a CPA qualification as a whole. Yeah.
However easy it seems to be, as you say it, CPA, there's always a fear factor. So what is your message to a student who aspires to do a program like CPA? What is your message to the young generation?
I went through the same apprehension before I decided to go with CPA. There were many people who doubted whether I could do CPA because I was not a person who would sit and spend time in studies. But
do you think that you are an average student or a bright student?
No, I'm the laziest guy. I'm the guy who doesn't fit anywhere. But when the time came, and for CPA, the only thing that matters, that's not applicable only to CPA, but that's applicable to any course, is hard work and determination. And if you are willing to put in the hours and the time, depending upon your strength and your weakness, CPA is very, very, very doable. Because from my laziness, I woke up and I decided to spend my time. So I decided to qualitatively ensure that I spend time for CPA and go with the modules, and I made sure that I get my basics right. So I even went back to my 11th standard and 12th standard double entry bookkeeping. I bought a fresh one. I went through all those. I went through my finance graduate program books, and then I finally started with my CPA book. So I went through that gradual process of putting my time and effort where it really matters. So essentially it is not studying for 20 hours a day into 200 days or 100 days. It doesn't work that way. It essentially makes, it's basically smart work on how well you can apply your time and effort into that what is required of you from the exam. But on the side note, when I studied CPA, it was one course that I really felt is very relevant to the career that I want to take, because every topic and every page and every kind of question that CPA is trying to ensure that you know the conceptual clarity is basically what you require in the field. So today when I'm practicing accountancy, when I'm practicing finance, when I'm practicing consultation, whether it be risk assessment or internal controls, all these things is something that I can relate to from when I studied. And because of that, I hold CPA holds a great value, and I feel that it is very doable. If a student is really aspiring for it, then definitely, whether you be an average student or whether you be a bright student, this is doable for you, provided you do very, very good smart work.
What has happened, I know it's already said, I asked the last question, but what has happened after you qualified CPA?
Well, for a while I did work for one of the big fours, and but then my choice of practicing deferred after I finished my CPA. I didn't want to go to the US, nor did I want to stay in the Middle East. And so I eventually moved out to India and partnered up with a couple of chartered accountants and company secretaries, and there's a company that's running called Leap Business Partners, and I've been heading the business transformation services there, and we run a model that is both assurance and advisory. So it's an assurance and advisory integrated model for clients, and we do consultation, we do risk assessment, we do risk mitigation, we do internal controls, we do statutory audits. I've done the tax audits, many tax audits in India. So my experience today holds in different areas, and even systems audit and systems maintaining to ensure that the internal controls are processed and so on. So experience has varied here and there, and I'm definitely enjoying it because I'm not stuck in one particular area, and one reason is because CPA gives you that multi-sector exposure, and because of the institution that I'm involved with now is also a multi-sector domain consulting. So you get experience and you garner it from different parts of the industry, and so I'm enjoying the experience now, and CPA definitely holds value today. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
I know
my
I have
pleasure.
a lot of questions, but probably we'll keep it for another
My
day.
pleasure. Thank you.
And I'm sure all of you would have got a lot of knowledge and understanding about CPA. Good thing about CPA right now is you can do the exam here now in India. Trivandrum being the closest center, we have around 11 promoted centers.
Yes.
So that's an opportunity.
Yeah, earlier they had to go, there was a lot of expense covering to go to do the exam either in the US or in Dubai, but with Prometric Center coming, that 18 months thing can be little minimized because the travel and the arrangements and all, you can reduce those times. So having a center in India, I think, is a brilliant.
So COVID, that's the positive about COVID.
That's one positive thing about COVID, probably, yeah.
Fine. Thank you, Toby. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thank you for attending this program.
Logic School of Management.